Very short tariff war that broke out between Colombia as planes that were scheduled to be filled with. These were not just people who were here illegally. These were also criminals, essentially.
So over the weekend, early on Friday, 2 Air Force planes carrying migrants that had been caught by the Department of Homeland Security and ICE and were being repatriated, sent back to the country where they had originated from, where their citizenship is, were headed towards Colombia. And then shortly after in air, they were notified by the Colombian government that they would not be received by the government. So they wouldn't have the ability to land and to transfer these detainees back to their country of origin. So they turned around. One went back to Texas. One went back to San Diego. President Trump was in the middle of a round of golf, but always working, sent out on Truth Social an announcement that he was going to take retaliatory measures, 25% tariff on all goods coming into the United States. And after 1 week, those 25% tariffs would be raised to 50%, travel ban and immediate visa revocations of Colombian government officials, visa sanctions on all party members, family members, and supporters of the Colombian government, enhanced custom and border protection inspections of all Colombian nationals and cargo, and a treasury, banking, and financial sanctions to be fully imposed on Colombia. Professor Hutchison, between that golf round, I believe some said he was on hole 6 and then hole 8 when Colombia caved. First, Colombia pushed back and said, well, fine, we're doing retaliatory tariffs as well.
50% tariffs.
But then within a matter of minutes, this was resolved. We talk a lot about the use of tariffs and how they can be a tool to get American foreign policy and those that we do business with to get in line with American policy. What's your take on what happened over the weekend in this very brief but very important signaling tariff war?
It says that President Trump, unlike his predecessor, can do several things at once. He can play golf. He can sign 200 executive actions and simultaneously hold a press conference. And he can impose tariffs on countries that are opposed to American interest. He also sent a signal both to illegals that are in the United States, and they now have an opportunity to self-deport, but he also sent a signal to Panama, to Mexico, to Iran, to Russia, to virtually every single country in the world that the United States will not accept policies that are contrary to U.S. interest. And so, lastly, but perhaps most importantly, Donald Trump has signaled that there is a president in the White House who is actually awake. And I think that's an important statement for the rest of the world.
My initial reaction was a bit nervous. Like, it was a bit chaotic to be like, oh, we are going to battle very quickly with these countries. And again, it's so not the diplomatic classic way we've been used to seeing things, which again is sort of almost a government corporate structure of it takes forever, things never get done, it goes on and on and on, and then eventually there's a resolution.
They were already starting to take the steps to implement this, but when you think about what a State Department, okay, then go to a committee. How do we respond to Colombia, their defiance? And they come up with plans, and then those plans go to, the Department of Homeland Security and the Treasury, and then they give their input, and then it gets watered down. And then at the end of the day, 6 weeks later, they announce, and someone on Twitter said basically like, Colombia has agreed it's a big victory to send less criminal migrants to our country. But you have to also look at what President Biden did in the first term, Professor Hutchison. To address the crisis, he said, I'm making Kamala Harris the border czar to study root causes. That was the very beginning of his administration. What happened to those root causes? This study, that's how the bureaucracy bogs down an issue and never does anything. This is showing how a president can operate outside of the bureaucracy, pushing the deep state aside and actually get stuff done instead of studying things like root causes for 4 years. In all the meantime, the crisis getting much, much, much worse.
One of the root causes of the border invasion is that the border was wide open. The border was not secure. President Trump immediately recognized that and has taken affirmative steps to close the border. We don't need a commission. We don't need bureaucrats to get involved. What we need is swift and decisive action, and President Trump has done that. And as I pointed out earlier, he has sent a dramatic signal to the rest of the world.
Right.
If you want to deal with the United States, you must realize that there is a competent person in the White House who can respond and who can respond swiftly.
What you hope is that this is an early stage effort to really show strength, show what we're doing here, so you don't have to continue to have these battles, that things will quiet down a little bit because the country and the world will feel safer. We will have a resolution to a lot of these problems.
When you have the left freaking out about the tariff war, saying that, AOC was talking about, good job, now we're going to have to pay 25% more for our coffee. This was in the brief period between hole 6 and hole 8 on the golf course when it all got resolved. But you know what many people are saying? You know what I would rather have? I'd have to pay 25% more on specifically Colombian coffee, as if that's the only place in the world that we get coffee beans from. But to not have the list of these people that they have been putting out, who they're rounding up. It's not the families and the children. It is specifically MS-13 gang members, a Haitian migrant that had 18 criminal offenses in the United States,
right,
was still here and basically said, I'm not going back to Haiti.
Yeah.
And all the list goes on. It is a litany of people that are the bad criminal actors. When you see things like the Lake and Riley Act being passed in the Senate and hopefully being signed by the president soon, it's because she was killed by a migrant, an illegal immigrant that was here, that had already committed and been charged with crimes in America and was still here. That's who they are getting rid of to make America safer. And if it takes a very short-lived tariff war to make the country of origin take their citizens back, then so be it.
What you saw was, you'd say, peace through strength,
right?
A push where all of a sudden President Trump made these demands and it was quickly taken care of. Why? Because, one, they know the threats are real now.
That's right.
I mean, that's a big part of it, is they know that, he is going to put these tariffs in. They're going to happen. And now he said they just sit unsigned, ready to be signed, by the way, if anything was to come up.
And I think it's also important to point out that initially, the president of Colombia tried to project bluster back. He tried to say, I won't shake hands with this man. We're going to do retaliatory tariffs as well, but very quickly back down. I think that's even more important than just him threatening the sanctions, they cave, and then they move on. It also showed that when he tried to push back, he still lost. He still lost this battle.